It's gonna take a miracle.
Whoa.
Thank goodness for my pre-recorded backing. In any case, Eurovision 2021 is coming with a new rule change. That is that pre-recorded backing vocals will be allowed. We should stress this is not the lead vocals that are pre-recorded, just the backing vocals. I think we should talk about it. Are you guys ready? Let's do this! Yes, the pandemic is still on, and officials behind the Eurovision Song Contest say they want to adapt to ensure that the contest is sustainable and that it can come through this pandemic. This is what the newly appointed executive supervisor, Martin Oosterdaal, had to say. The lessons learned from the spring of 2020 are that we need to plan for a global crisis, and we have tailored the rules of the contest to that effect. We must be able to be more flexible and to make changes even to the format itself and how we organize the event in these challenging times. As organizers of the world's largest live music event, we are determined and united in our mission to bring back a contest, a new winner, and a handover to a new broadcaster. These elements are in our DNA and part of our legacy. Now, you guys, there are 3 reasons behind this. The first is that countries can explore new creative ideas, that they can travel with smaller delegations, and that it will reduce the technical burdens on the host broadcaster. Now, we are going to unpack things and go around and give our take. Let me just start by emphasizing the financial point. One reason in favor of this is that it in some ways creates a more level playing field. The fact is, poorer countries, smaller countries don't have the budget, even in good times, to compete on the same level as other countries. If you're drawn into the first half of the first semi-final and you're a small country, that's tens of thousands of extra dollars you have to spend on hotel rooms, on food, than if you're drawn to the second half of the second semi-final. And the reason I say this is because a head of delegation from a small country told me this, and she was like, I really hope we get drawn into the second half of the second semi, so we save all that coin. And we've got to realize that during a pandemic, broadcasters are having to reallocate their money towards, education programs, news programs about the pandemic, so they don't necessarily have extra cash at the moment to splash out on hotels for, 5 extra backing vocalists. In any case, Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the financial point is super important. Imagine Bulgaria, we know, is a country that has struggled with the funds. And for example, imagine Sophie Marinova 2012 absolutely killed it. But imagine if they'd had the money to also have all the backing singers. It could have been a crazy performance. And I reckon it would have been a qualifier. I think also, we're really trying to encourage new countries to come back. We've got Andorra, who said they can't enter because of financial reasons. Bosnia-Herzegovina, we've loved Eurovision, they can't do because of the money. I think if you could cut down the costs, we could see so much more at Eurovision. And even countries that are already here, they could focus more money on the actual song and the visuals, as opposed to paying for all these different singers that we're not even going to see on stage, perhaps. I just believe that the quality would seriously increase if this is not something you have to pay for, all the backing vocals, extra costs.
Lucy.
So I have a bit of a counter-argument to the financial side of things. Poorer countries won't necessarily be able to afford the production value on the studio cut. Because let's face it, the studio cut's quality is going to go up because the rules. And countries like, for example, Moldova, obviously Philip Kirkorov was involved this year, so they've got the money from there. But smaller countries that really don't have that kind of backing, they're not necessarily going to be able to keep up with the quality of the studio cut. So their vocals could be, with want of a better example, there's Herthi from Albania in 2014. The studio cut was quite poor at times, that kind of thing. It might not actually end up saving them that much money because they have got to put that much more money into the studio cut now. And I know that's only a small counter argument. Obviously, the benefits outweigh that negative, but it is a point to consider as well. They have now got to pump way more into it. And if you've got Boris Milanov writing the song, then I guess it's different. But in countries that don't have necessarily got have really incredible producers like this don't have the resources, like the studios for it, that's something they've now got to take into account.
And I suppose it also creates a bit of a, not an arms race, but a body race. So instead of having backing vocalists, on stage in the 6-person rule, you could instead have extra dancers. So there might be a pressure, to keep up with the richer countries who have all their backing vocalists pre-recorded, and then they have 5 dancers on stage. And so now, if you're the smaller country, you're like, oh no, I don't have 5 extra bodies on stage. I just want to quickly read through some comments on our Twitter account. People are passionate. Is the point. People are very, very passionate. Simon writes, the so-called Swedish mafia rules in the ESC. Every commenter should be obliged to announce which delegation uses recording backing vocals. He also says, I would simply recommend my broadcaster to withdraw from Eurovision as long as rules are not stable and equal for all participants. This change will permit for a fake impression of how good one or another singer is. To be fair, let's go back to when there were only solo artists. Ed.
But the thing is, the contest needs to evolve as the music industry evolves. Back when it started, you weren't allowed more than 2 singers on stage. Imagine that nowadays. And the truth is that the music industry nowadays, it does use pre-recorded backing vocals for pretty much all of its TV performances. And, in the past, we have had some songs that have been ruined, in my opinion, from not allowing pre-recorded vocals. For example, I've just got 3 here. Israel 2012, Isabeau. They had these really kind of fun, high-pitched choral, almost like a children's choir, backing vocals in the chorus, which they just couldn't recreate with what they had. And it just sounded a bit off, even though, in my opinion, it should have finished super high. Also, Twin Twin, France 2014. Controversial song, not everyone loves it, but it used edited vocals in order to have that really quirky sound, like je veux ci, je veux ça, and you just can't do that with your normal voice, and it just sounded a bit dead on stage. And then also Finland 2018, Sara Aalto, who for some reason finished second to last in the final. And it's because I believe, the vocals, it uses edited backing vocals, which give it this very exciting feel in the studio cut, but it's just not possible to recreate live. And nowadays that's so common in songs. Think of Alan Walker, think of Tones and I. It's the music industry is evolving, and I think that Eurovision needs to evolve with it.
I'm going to throw in another example that anybody that knows me will not be shocked at all. I've chosen this. Michael Rice. His backing vocals were the biggest issue in his performance. And I think Michael himself had this incredible voice that was completely overshadowed by the backing vocals. And I do think, whilst I don't think Big Than Us would have got top 10, I don't think it would have come last if that issue was fixed. Because it was so overpowering, wasn't it? I mean, I love Sarlen, but it was too much. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some other performances. I think Nicholas Joseph as well, to an extent, because there was this it sounded totally different on the Eurovision stage. It was a lot more feminine, I think, the backing vocals. And I think some of the lyrics were quite laddie, with want of a better way of saying it. And so to have that really feminine noise in the backing vocals, it sounded odd in contrast with the song, I think. And, there's a bit where they say, when I was your man, but it's in this really not high pitch, but this strong female voice. So I think as well, to be able to also to help Nicholas Joseph, because there was points where I think he was running out of breath when going quite low. I'm not going to start singing it. But I think there was points where maybe he could have potentially benefited from it as well.
I would like to bring up Elheda Dani from Albania 2015. I felt like the blending with the backing vocalist was not good. She sounded great, but the hey, yay, 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 I was not feeling those harmonies on the stage. Wiwiblogger Ron Kavaler, he has tweeted, I have mixed feelings about it. I don't like it at Melfest in Sweden, as backing singers take over and almost become the leading singers in a very high volume, so you barely even hear the lead singer, but of course it does make the song sound better.
Every day, every night, every time, make it alright. Gotta stay cool, wanna get high, living my la 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 life.
And Sweden is coming up a lot in the comments section on Wiwibloggs.com. ESC1234 writes, the Swedish mafia took advantage of a global pandemic in order to do what they have been trying for years, but I get it. Good pre-recorded vocals can hide the fact that artists like Ingrosso can't sing. Now, the other point that keeps coming up continuously in our comments is that, both on Twitter and on Instagram and on the website, is that the EBU has said this is a one-year trial, yet people say Australia's participation was also allegedly temporary and now they're here to stay. And at the same time, the EBU says this is to make the contest more sustainable, yet they're saying it's a one-year trial. So there seems to be a lot of competing sort of durations. What do you guys think about this? Is this actually going to become permanent, or do you think this is a trial to actually test?
I do believe that it's a trial. I think given coronavirus and the measures everyone's taking, it would be stupid to have any unnecessary people there. So I do believe it really was the best choice for this year. And, you know, I'm very open if it flops for them to leave it. So, yeah, I don't think this is necessarily an absolute decision for the future of Eurovision.
Yeah, I guess it could be a trial to see. Again, I think the financial kind of side of it is one of the biggest reasons, and maybe it's a trial to see how much money that actually can be saved. But I'm afraid I do think it is a permanent thing, because, like you say, with Australia, like they've used that language quite a bit to kind of basically bring in new ideas. I do think it is a permanent thing, and I mean, I suppose it does, as discussed previously, like move with the times a bit. I guess it does modernise the contest. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, but I do think, I mean, in 3 years, say it goes on 3 years, we'll forget that we ever went at the decision, and it will just be like, oh yeah, that's standard at Eurovision. So I do think it's here to stay.
I have a question, actually. Is it all backing vocals must be pre-recorded, or countries have the choice?
The key here is optionality. Countries have the choice. And I think a lot of artists will insist that they want live backing vocals. A lot of artists, you know, consider that a part of being a true artist is only performing with live instruments, performing with live backing vocalists or whatever. So I think a lot of people will want to maintain that. But I guess in terms of creativity, it does mean that, okay, I want an extra dancer, so I'm going to make those backing vocalists pre-recorded, or I don't want to have to find dancers who can also sing. I want dancers who can dance, and I want my pre-recorded vocals that can be pre-recorded and vocally slay. So again, it's just kind of expanding the options on the table.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart move. You know, for example, as you just said with the dancers, Hurricane this year, they had a killer performance at Beovizia with big dancers. They could have done this amazing MTV-style mega performance, but because it's a song that requires heavy backing vocals, especially when they're doing such difficult dancing, they had to cut down on all the dancers. And I do think it would have lost a lot of that energy. So the creative freedom that this would have given them, I think, would have really benefited. It benefits lots of upbeat songs, especially, I think. I
think my biggest concern with it is, like, you know, there's certain performances where there's kind of whispers about, is it actually the main artist doing the lead vocals, including a certain example we start this video with. But also, you know, like going way back, potentially Svetlana Loboda, people were saying stuff then, including Graham Norton, and, you know, and Demi as well is another one. Her backing vocalist did certain parts of the work in the chorus. And it's like, at that point, are people going to try and loophole it to make the lead vocalist sound a certain way? Or, you know, that's another thing I'm thinking as soon as I read it.
Yeah, it's funny, new rules open up new channels for potential abuse. However, I think they'll be really stringent in checking those backing tracks. I mean, certainly we all remember the controversy when Joust used sort of manipulated voice elements in his backing, and ultimately it was fine, and, you know, people enjoyed the performance and it came top 10, I believe. So I think we will get through this. I want to read this comment on Wiwibloggs from Hi243, and it kind of echoes what Ed said earlier. Once you step away from Eurovision and look at performances in other markets, you realize how dull ESC performances can be. The reason many ESC rules are old, like no backing vocals and 6 people on stage, and not in line with modern entertainment. This is a good step to move forward. Okay, the no backing track rule was valid decades ago when music was much more simple and stripped back, but I'm happy that organizers realize that music has evolved and that not every musical composition can be replicated with human vocals alone. Look at Polly Genova's If Love Were a Crime. Do you remember in the studio cut the kind of digital voice they had going on? That was lovely. And of course they had to fix things for Stockholm. Ed.
Yeah. And it all comes back to, at the end of the day, being the Eurovision Song Contest. And in recent years, it's felt a bit like the Eurovision Vocal Contest, you know. Tamara Todevska from Macedonia last year winning the jury vote, despite, in terms of the televote, she only got votes from about 4 countries that weren't in former Yugoslavia. You know, at the end of the day, it wasn't the most loved song, yet it was given this massive advantage because she had amazing vocals, and she did have amazing vocals, and that is part of what makes a performance great. But it shouldn't distract all the attention from the song, because then countries are not going to focus on getting a good song. They're going to focus on getting a good vocalist, and the song will be an overlooked part. And, you know, we want hits. We want to bring smiles to people's faces. We want good music. And I think this rule really does underline that very well.
I mean, I guess the question is, do we want good radio music? Do we want good live music? There are lots of different ways to cut this. I'm going to defend my girl Tamara Tadevska. I think that song is powerful. I thought that stage show was powerful, even if European voters weren't as into it as the juries. But I do take your point. I think even within Eurovision circles of fans, people sometimes say, oh, that's amazing, but they'll often just be talking about the voice. Like, if you take a step back, you know, the song is maybe so, not Tamara, but other songs can be so. But yeah, it is part of a whole collective package, and it's hard to parse these things out. I just like the fact that people have optionality, that, you know, people can be more creative. Because let's face it, a lot of countries use staging to mask so songs. Ukraine 2011, no offense, Mika Newton, but Angel did not soar, Sand Lady slayed. And I think this will give entertainment a boost, and people will still be won over by stellar vocals, and I think many artists will choose to have only live vocals because they know they can kill it. It may impact how people write songs. If you know that you can have pre-recorded backing, maybe people will pursue dance songs, you know, more freely. Because I think one thing that holds people back with dance songs, it's really hard to sing and dance at the same time. But if you know your backing can be, you know, all pre-recorded, you can really hammer it home. Lucy.
All I know is Salvador Sobral would hate this. But yeah, no, I do agree, and I do think Eurovision is, I mean, generally it's a pop contest, isn't it? Mostly speaking, and I suppose it does go into that. I mean, you look at kind of EDM and things like that, like Swedish House Mafia songs that have got the vocals on it. Perhaps it'll open it up more to that kind of thing, although I don't think it is as popular as it was back then, like 2013, but perhaps it will bring in songs with a dance break. Like, for some reason, the example that's come to mind is when Mabel performed Don't Call Me Up at the Brit Awards this year. It's this huge performance that she did, and a lot of it was pre-recorded, I think, but it was still a really good like performance, and they had this massive dance break in it, and it was so awesome to watch, like as a spectacle. So I guess it can open up the contest to things more like that. It ain't my cup of tea, but it's, you know, I think it's most fans' cup of tea to kind of go for something really extra.
Finally, I'm just going to read 2 tweets that are in reply to our tweet about this post. Gabrielis writes, think it's good. While ESC is a part of entertaining TV, the performance should be more powerful and more enjoyable for both viewers and artists on stage. So I guess it would alleviate stress for the artist if, you know, let's face it, the pre-record is always going to nail their vocals, so you know what you're harmonizing to. But then in response to that, Dan says, hate it. Makes it easier to hide poor lead vocal performances. Final thoughts from you guys, Ed.
I think the most important point here that this is optional. And I do think plenty of countries who still believe in this and who still think they can benefit from it will choose to have live vocals. But I do think, firstly, in the times we're in, this is a necessary action, regardless of whether it may be the right one. And secondly, I do think this opens the game for so much more variety of music styles and more exciting performances. So I welcome this change. Let's give it a shot and see how it goes.
Lucy, do you hashtag open up to the idea?
I'm very let's see what happens. I do think Eurovision is a live event, and I do think it would be a shame to lose some of that. But I mean, let's face it, when Albania this year at FIC brought in the round without the orchestra or something, they kind of modernised it a little bit this year. It was quite a refreshing change. So actually, you know, although they're quite far behind Eurovision in terms of how they kind of do the music in their contest, I do think change is probably a good thing in the long run. I'm just being a bit salty about it for now, but I'll get used to it.
I think for me, practicality wins the day. The fact is, it's June 18th. I'm supposed to be getting over my Eurovision hangover about now. But instead, I got over it a long time ago because Eurovision didn't happen. We have to make changes to ensure that the contest can happen. And if that means finding creative ways so that countries can afford to participate, so be it. We've been here before where people think Eurovision is ending, whether that was, the introduction of juries or the change in the way voting was presented, or, people with each change say Eurovision's over, but guess what? Eurovision's still here. And I strongly suspect it will still be here, and that in a year's time, we'll evaluate the hiccups, but we'll also celebrate the successes. I don't think Eurovision's becoming another version of Melfest. I think it's just becoming more open-minded, if you will. This will not become a karaoke contest, because ultimately the lead vocalist has to sing live, and no amount of backing is going to hide or mask a poor singer. Okay? This is the reality. In any case, that's what we think. What do you think? Are you living for this new rule that will allow for pre-recorded backing vocals? What are the pitfalls? And what are the amazing elements that you just can't stop talking about? Let us know here on Wiwibloggs.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know what you think in the comments down below.
And hit that subscribe button and the notification bell.
We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.